everyone, Andrew here, and welcome to today's video, which is going to be something that's a little different from, I think, other things we've probably done before, and that is going to be a look at a whole bunch of random stuff in my game room. There's so many little things that, you can't just make a whole video about, but I think are so cool regardless. And that's kind of been, I guess, quote-unquote, one of the problems with my collecting over the years, is I have always been drawn to things that are interesting, cool, and obscure, rather than just collecting the games that will probably go up in value at some point, as we have seen in recent years. Especially, GameCube right now, it's like skyrocketing, and it's like, why didn't I just buy that game at the time? But, I was so worried about all the other things that you don't really hear about, but I'm still super happy to own regardless. So I thought it'd be fun to just make a video of me finding a whole bunch of those things, maybe telling a story that goes along with when I got them, or with, my relation to them, or just talking about the item, of course, itself would make a lot of sense, and make a video of a whole bunch of little things like that. So yeah, we're gonna jump right into that, and before anyone mentions it, I got a pretty short haircut. I actually got my first haircut in like a bajillion years because of everything that's going on right now, and who knows when my next one's going to be, so I went super short. So now that I'm not gonna get a billion comments about that, let's dive right in. There was a time not too long ago when used games were like the biggest thing ever. If you didn't want to pay full price for a game, or maybe it was a game that had been out for a while and you couldn't find it new anymore, you would just buy the used version. These days, if you want to play a more modern game and you can't find it at the store, you'll probably just download it digitally. But I have such a soft spot in my heart for used games, because as a kid, just buying games with your allowance money and such, that was definitely the way to go if it was significantly cheaper than the full price version. And sometimes what happened was used game stores, or maybe even rental shops, when they weren't renting a game out anymore and they were just selling it, would put their games into these plastic containers. That, of course, this isn't how the game came originally, but I guess, to catch your eye, instead of these days, a game would just be thrown into a bin, no one would look at it, but this, I guess, grabs your attention. And I think it's just cool to see these interesting plastic holders that were made specifically to sell these used games. These days it would be, a big environmental problem. You'd have people complaining this plastic is, filling up the oceans. But I think that there's definitely a charm to these packages. You sometimes even get a full game in there, which is kind of interesting. It's not even just a used game. This is actually still a brand new sealed game. Not a great game, but I mean, it's still sealed regardless. And it was actually, when I bought a used game from Blockbuster way back in the day, it came in a plastic packaging like this that included a Nintendo 64 memory card, and that was my very first N64 memory card. I was like, yes, I can finally play Quest 64 now and save my Mario Kart 64 ghosts. Not sure why they decided to, make that package combination. It's definitely, I was very happy for it as a kid, but I think that these, maybe not for you if, you're a more modern gamer or someone who's gotten into gaming more recently, but for me, seeing these plastic containers that hold used games, or I guess even in some cases not used ones, that really brings back some great memories for me. And it came with a memory card. Can't complain about that. Here we have some Mario Maker promotional items. I absolutely love just, physical objects like this. Not promotional things that are like, hey, it's an email, or hey, if you pre-order this, you'll get like 50 extra lives or something like that. That's completely silly in my mind. But physical things like this that, weren't even something you had to pay for. This was just handed out to advertise Mario Maker. I think are so cool. And these are actually not something that were just handed out, but these were promotional things that would have been placed at a game store to, advertise Mario Maker. Pylons, things under construction. I think that these are so neat, and as a kid I loved things like this. I would put them on my hands and pretend I was either Drill Man or Crash Man from Mega Man. I had an imagination back in the day, and hopefully you do too. Do not let social media eat your mind. But yeah, just physical things like this, so cool. Digital, I'm not a fan of the all-digital future that we are facing. Physical forever. Here's the TV guide from October 30th to November 5th, 1999, TV guides. Wow, they just bring back so many memories, and then seeing Pokemon on the front of it is just mind-blowing. I actually picked this up when I was at the Midwest Gaming Classic a number of years back with Milesluigi, and yeah, this was when, Pokemon was just kind of starting to take over the world. And what this actually is, you might wonder, like, why Charmander on the front? There is actually 4 different versions of it, and you can put them all beside each other and make a big picture. Charmander's still a very cool one to have, but I can just crack this thing open and it just blows my mind. Seeing all the different shows and such that used to exist back in the day. There's a big article about Pokemon and such. Like, look, like Angela Anaconda, Digimon, all these different things. Dragon Tales. This just really takes me back to, 1999. Very, very fun times. The Simpsons Halloween Special, Treehouse of Horror 10. What are they on now? Like 10,000. Yeah, I can just look through this thing and it's just like a time machine that takes you right back to that age before you could just Google whatever is going to be on TV, and then again, no one actually watches TV. You know, Google what's on YouTube. This is such a cool relic, and I love, you know, just being able to skim through it, as I do with any old literature. Nintendo Powers, such fun looking through those old pieces of work. Speaking of classic things, how about SpongeBob? Now, I know SpongeBob's still going on today, much like The Simpsons, and much like Arthur. I have what I call the Yellow Trinity. Simpsons, SpongeBob, and Arthur. I guess, you know, because he wears a yellow shirt, so I associate yellow with Arthur. And they are shows I absolutely loved as a kid, loved back in the day, and yet all three of them are still going today, and all three of them are absolutely awful now. It's like, please just end, stop ruining my childhood. And that's kind of a segue away from what I'm holding in my hand, but a SpongeBob-themed Nintendo Game Boy Advance SP. It's so cool. It's the 101 model, so it even has the better backlit screen, and it's just such a neat item. I love themed consoles, themed, you know, especially Game Boys and 3DSs and such. There was a lot of those. Unfortunately, we don't see as many, you know, themed, you know, I guess like the Switch, it's kind of both, so it kind of has some, but like for example, the Wii and the Wii U, yeah, it had some colors, but definitely nothing like this. I think this is such a neat item, and just, yeah, collecting all the different variations of Game Boys and Game Boy Advances and Nintendo DSs is so much fun. So, SpongeBob 1, I think it's very cool. Some people may know that the Ace Attorney series is one that I absolutely love. I've played them all, even all the Japanese exclusive ones. Very good games. What some people may not know is that as early as 2005, you could actually play the Ace Attorney games on PC. Of course, these days, you know, go get them on Steam. Ace Attorney, it's like Doom. It's on every single console out there, but in Japan, they actually had PC releases right around the time that they were coming out for GameCube, and these are still sealed copies of them. And I just think, you know, it's definitely such an interesting part of Ace Attorney history. You don't normally think that, you know, even back then, there was PC versions. And what are like the specs? Windows XP/2000, you need a Pentium 3 computer, 128 megabytes of memory. It's just, again, you know, so many of these things I'm pointing out in this video, I guess I'm gonna, you know, talk about how they're a blast from the past, but I guess that's just what this whole room is, right? But yeah, Ace Attorney 1 and 3, 2 of course was also released on PC, although unfortunately you don't have that one, but these are very cool. And if you haven't played the trilogy, yeah, you can just, like, you know, buy all three of these together now on pretty much any platform of your desire. They're very fun. Go check them out. Here we have PacMan for the Atari 400 and 800 computers. I absolutely love these boxed games. Not necessarily because of the art, not necessarily because there's just so much detail in the back, because once we open up these boxes, you will see just how silly they are, because that is all that's in there. Probably can't see it there, but you can see it now. All this packaging for a little tiny cartridge. And, you know, there might be some paperwork in there. This one in particular doesn't, but like, it doesn't need to be that massive. No reason that such a small cartridge needs to be in such a big box, but whenever I need a good laugh, I just think about how much paper was wasted making Atari 400, 800 game boxes, and it always gets me, you know, quite happy. So, silly thing, I figured I'd include it in this video. If we're going to talk about an Atari 400 game, I guess we might as well talk about the console itself. It's like a spaceship, this computer. This is what computing looked like 40 years ago. It's not even keys. It's like, you know, touch sensitive. You press this button and it opens up and your cartridge goes into like this cavern here, and you can push the lid back down. This thing is massive. It's heavy. It's crazy, and it's totally retro. I absolutely love it. The Atari 400, super interesting computer, but I wouldn't want to use it for too long. Definitely does not look super ergonomic. I'm quite happy with the computers we have today. Still, Atari 400, very cool piece of retro gaming and computer history, I think. Alright, here is a PAL region Dreamcast game. You're probably thinking, what's so strange about that? Or maybe if you live in somewhere where PAL region is, you know, the norm, you're thinking there's nothing so special about this. But as someone who is familiar with cases that look a lot more like this, very rectangular, nothing special going on, when I first saw a PAL Dreamcast game, I thought it was so cool. There's like a whole purple thing going on, it has rounded edges, and it's like, you know, twice as thick. So you open up the top, and that's where you get your game. Although the bottom also opens up, And in here is where you get your super thick instruction manual, because of course PAL region games, they would usually have to cover all sorts of different languages that the PAL region covers, so that's why the case had to be thicker as well. You also get that kind of extra thickness with PlayStation games from the PAL region as well, but their cases don't look anywhere near as cool as the PAL region Dreamcast cases do. So I thought that would just be a fun kind of thing to point out, because I knew the first time I saw it, it was pretty mind-blowing, so hopefully you enjoyed that. Here's another case where there are two different versions of something, although rather than it being, from two different parts of the world, this time they are both North American, just they are actually variants. Many people are probably familiar with the NES cleaning kit. It's this device that you would put into your Nintendo Entertainment System, and it would theoretically, make it work better, stop your glitches and all that. But I guess from the front of this packaging, that wasn't really super clear. It's like, why do I need to clean it? So it was actually re-released later on with a version where Mario is wiping away the glitches, and you can now play World 6 of Super Mario Bros. 3 without any of those nasty problems. So I think it's so cool that, they took what was rather a boring cover and made it look pretty cool. I would buy that. Even if my NES wasn't dirty, I would still want to own such a cool box. And it doesn't actually end there. The same thing happened with the Super Nintendo. Started out with a pretty boring box, not too interesting, doesn't really make you want to buy it, and then you get this version and it's like, whoa, I want my Super Mario World to look exactly like that. And, I just think that is so neat. Personally, I never had nearly as much problem with glitching Super Nintendo games as I did with NES games. It was obviously a much bigger problem there, but to see that there's a Super Nintendo version of that as well is very cool, and I don't think there was a Nintendo 64 version. At least if there is, I've never seen it, but again, it seemed like as the Nintendo consoles went on, they became more reliable, thankfully. But yeah, I definitely think that these boxes are super cool. When it comes to the Super Nintendo, there are actually 3 big boxed games released by Nintendo as first-party titles: Earthbound, Mario Paint, and the Super Game Boy. And it's just so neat seeing those, big boxes on your shelf in contrast to the smaller ones. However, there is another big boxed game on the Super Nintendo, except this one, not being a first-party release, is not, I don't think, catches, many people's attention. Not many people think about it, and that is the Super Bomberman Party Pack. And the reason this box is so big is because it also includes the Super Multi-Tap, so you could play with up to 5 people at once. A very, very neat set that, again, I don't think many people really recognize it because it's not first party. It's also actually even a little bit bigger than the other big boxed games, so it's super neat to own, super neat to have on the shelf. I really like it. Although for some reason, what would have made perfect sense to include in this set is in Japan there was actually a multi-tap that looked like Bomberman's head. Like, that is just so neat. So why they wouldn't have included this in that set, I have no idea. But I guess, here's another bonus item to add in with that one. A Super Nintendo multi-tap shaped like Bomberman's head. How could you go wrong with that? And lastly, we have the Sega Nomad in the box. This was like the dream back in the day, being able to play your console video games anywhere. I guess the Switch is kind of bringing that to life in the modern sense, but back in the day, it's like, man, I want to play Super Mario Bros. 3 even when I'm not at home, or, any of those games. It was just so cool. So to see that Sega actually made an official way for you to play your Genesis games on the go, even if it ate batteries like mad, or if you wanted to, play it for longer periods of time, you had to be plugged into a wall outlet anyway. Still, just the fact that they actually, tried to bring that idea into existence is something I can really appreciate. I think that the Sega Nomad's pretty neat. Of course, if you have, a Genesis at home, you're probably good anyway. These days, if you were really desperate to play some Genesis games anywhere, you could probably just, load them up on your phone or whatever. But back in the day, this was super cool. And yeah, it wasn't something that Nintendo was doing, so I guess it really was Sega does what Nintendo don't. So hope you enjoyed seeing that. I think that's something I'm probably going to have to do an unboxing of this, because it's definitely a pretty cool and obscure box. And if there's anything else I looked at in this video that you think would be neat for me to, maybe spend more time talking about, please don't be afraid to mention that down in the comments. Or of course, if there's anything else you think like me to review or such, don't be afraid to suggest that as well. I hope you enjoyed this, strange video of me just talking about some things that I like in my collection. I hope you enjoyed seeing them. And I hope you'll join me next time for more retro game stuff. So thanks, and see you later. Thank you so much once again for checking out my videos. I really appreciate it. And if you enjoyed, please consider leaving a like and subscribing, as it really helps my channel out. With that said, hope to see you next time.